Hey guys, this is something a little different today. Usually I talk about invasions and doing the invading myself. This is going to be a little different. I'm going to talk more about being invaded, and less so that like what's a good strategy to what's a good strategy when being invaded, because that's not really that's not something that needs to be really talked about. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Like just go get a phantom, put on Wave of Blue. Like there's all these things given to you in game that are specifically designed for the host to defend themselves against invaders. Now this video is going to be much more about just talking about duels and in Dark Souls 3 and just a little bit about the balance of it, right? I leave a bunch of bosses alive nowadays. I used to just go through and kill all the bosses, even with like lower level characters, just because like, oh, it's fun. Got a little tired of that. So now what I do is I leave as many bosses as I can alive. So for this character, I've left the old Demon King alive, and I've left Aldrich and Yorm alive, so I can get invaded in Anor Londo, and I can get invaded in Irithyll, in like Post Pontiff, and as well as Profane Capital and Irithyll Dungeon. So it ends up being a lot of different areas that I can still get invaded in, which is pretty ideal. What's interesting though is like I'll get into these wide open areas like this Smoldering Lake area, and I'll be invaded several times by the same person back to back to back. So this was, I fight this guy 3 times, and I never went back to the bonfire for any of them. I just like fought him for like 3 or 4 minutes at a time. And this guy was really fun to fight. He like had a good playstyle. He could parry me with his rapier, which he did once. It's just a blast to fight this kind of player who is like trying different things. You know, maybe his setup isn't super meta, but the rapier and greatsword is, you know, kind of part of that try hard offhand meta that I like to use a lot these days. So I feel a little bit bad about doing this kind of thing, just because like I have this massive advantage over them with my like 30% health and also like the amount of Estus I have, which is only 14 plus 9, by the way, because I can't go to the Grand Archives without beating Aldrich and Yorm. But I feel a little bit bad about doing this just because like they have I have a huge advantage over them, and it feels a little bit like ganking. Although I try to make it so that I don't heal on them unless they heal on me. So if they want like a honor duel, I'll give it to them. I'm not like expecting them. I'm not going to do that shitty thing that a lot of hosts do, which is when you heal in an invasion, then they clap at you like you actually did something wrong. But this is a lot of fun for me because I just get to try out a lot of different things. I learn a lot from fighting other players, and I like to keep an eye out for what other people are using, what other people are running in these lower level invasions. I see a lot of like lap armor. It's the lap claymore set, where they'll run a 2-handed claymore and try to get better at using like those G9 techniques of turning the R1s and R2s around. I encounter a lot of those. I encounter some people who are just really out there to just try to like one-shot brand new players with their Dragon Slayer axes, even though Dragon Slayer axe at this level is starting to get out-damaged by other weapons. So it lets me kind of, you know, to sound like a bit of a boomer, to know what all the kids are doing these days. It lets me know like what people are trying out. One thing you'll see later is a guy running what I believe was a hollow build, because he was I think was attempting to bleed me out. Also, because of my very large health advantage, I can try out some different stuff. I've been getting a lot better with the partisan and hand axe. I'm currently in the process of upgrading a heavy infused great machete, which is a weapon I've never played with, and hoping to like pair that with an offhand hand axe, or maybe like an offhand like S-Stock or something. So we'll see. Been having a lot of fun playing around with different builds, because you can kind of really afford to do that down here. The thing that does kind of suck about this area though is that it's hard to get a good invasion around here. You'll get a lot of hosts who are just gathering up phantoms to go fight the boss. You'll get people who go back up the Karthus bridge ladder and run back into the level that way, and it'll just take forever to chase them down. So I end up having a lot more luck just popping a dried finger rather than getting an actual invasion down here. Because every time I'm down here, I pop the dried finger and I hit the red eye orb and see which comes first, and it's almost always the dried finger. Now I want to talk a little bit about people's expectations for duels in this game, right? People complain a lot about duels in Dark Souls 3, especially because they're like, oh, invasions aren't balanced, which is funny because they're not supposed to be. But they also like always point back to Dark Souls 2 and say, well, that game had great invasions, everything was balanced, blah 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 blah. The PvP was so good. PvP was great in Dark Souls 2 because people understood what it was supposed to be. At launch, there was 2 arenas for the player base to duel in. Dark Souls 2 was a duelist game. Everything was balanced, and it took them a long time to balance it because they needed to have like a million patches and everything. But the game was indeed balanced for duels. People just don't seem to understand that Dark Souls 3 is balanced much more for invasions, which has always kind of been Miyazaki's vision for the game. You'll see this guy I'm fighting here is kind of representative of the state of a lot of invasions in Dark Souls 3. Each of these fights went on for 4 or 5 minutes, but were just so tediously boring because there was all this. It was all us like running around trying to get like our R1s to hit, or to shoot me with the fucking exploding bolts. It was just as passive as could be. I was happy to oblige him on this like honor duel thing, but it's just Dark Souls 3 duels are nowhere near as fun as invasions because the game isn't balanced towards that. Well, thank you guys for watching. This was a little shorter of video than they usually are. I'm trying to keep them to around 7 or 8 minutes, just so they're like smaller, more digestible videos that aren't just like a 15-minute slog where I'm going to rant for 15 minutes. I'd like to keep the ideas more concise, just in general more streamlined. Also, check out this friendly crab in the smoldering lake. He doesn't attack you unless you attack him, so go hang out with him. He's a little lonely.